I've tried many times to make a video like this in the past, but it's sort of such a broad topic. It's hard to really get it in a concise way in a video. So let me try. Where are traditional martial arts in today's MMA world and in today's MMA fights? First of all, I said in my last video titled "What is Hung Gar?" that at the end of the day, fighting is fighting. A punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. Everything is going to look similar because strategies are basically the same. There is no magic technique, there is no magic style, there's no magic form that's going to help you beat someone else. It's just, can you think on your feet? Can you adjust? Can you take what you know and find the weak spots in that other fighter? But one of the main points that I want to make in this video is that MMA and traditional martial arts are more similar than you think. And the difference in how they look, because there's a big difference in how they look. The visual difference is the range of motion. In a lot of traditional forms, you'll see, hold on, let me shut this door. I think the wind might be loud. In a lot of traditional forms, you'll see a deep horse stance with a side punch, and then they turn into a forward stance, reverse punch. Okay, if you ask any traditional martial artist, do you fight in a deep horse stance? Do you have such motions like this, where you have a hand on a hip and a long outstretched arm with your chin up? They'll say no, that's not how we fight, that's how we train. Kung Fu trains the full range of motion of attacks. So let's look at what this looks like in MMA. Okay, this side punch and a cross. We don't fight in low stance, so let's bring that stance up a bit. And we don't put our hands on the hips, so let's bring our hands up to protect ourselves. Now let's do the same hip motion with our hands up. We jab, hips are facing you like they were in the horse stance, and then we throw the cross. Hips are facing in a forward stance like they were in the reverse punch. Okay? It's the same technique, but it looks different. It's like if you knew nothing about weightlifting and you saw somebody squat down and do a 90-degree squat, and then you saw somebody squat all the way down and then push up, you might think those are two different exercises, as like a very beginner person who doesn't know anything about weightlifting. And if the competition only calls for you to do a 90-degree squat, and that's all that you train, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go the extra mile so that you can functionally be strong in your life, like maybe you're helping somebody move out of their house and you have to pick up a couch or a piano or something like that, you might want to train the full range of motion so that you can be strong the whole way rather than only train your muscles to be strong from here up. It's the same in the forms. You can take a lot of MMA moves and lengthen them, and they'll start to look more like Kung Fu. Like if they throw a punch and you parry and then you counter with your cross, okay, what does that look like stretched out? Well, let's make this parry a big circle. And then let's pull this hand back all the way. All right? And now maybe we want to send a message to the people learning the form that this is an aggressive move. It's a strong move. You're not using angles, you're not using anything else. It's just you're blocking and you're coming straight in. Let's send that message by making this big parry and this punch with tiger claws to represent the mindset of the tiger, which is hard, strong power. Now we've got this big block, this big wind up and powerful strike. Boom! But you're never going to see someone fighting with such big movements. It's going to look more like it did in boxing or MMA, with just a small little parry, and we move out of the way. We're in a horse, just like we were here, and then we transition to our strike. But rather than winding up, it's just boom, 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 boom. Same move. The crane, where you use the crane beak, they jab at you, you try to hook it, or hook it and pull it in and squeeze it against your chest to lock their arm, and then step to the side and strike their eye with your fingers. Okay, you're not going to see that, but if we shorten it, and since people are often wearing boxing gloves when they fight, you won't see a crane beak. And an attempt at an eye strike is going to be futile because it'll just be a punch. So rather than trying to hook and squeeze their arm in, a more practical approach would be to parry with your rear hand, step off to the side, just like you would turn your body in the crane move, and throw your attack. Or, a hook rather than a straight punch. The world's your oyster, okay? So a lot of these techniques are just either longer or shorter versions of each other. One more. I went to a Muay Thai gym and they had us practice when somebody's throwing that roundhouse kick, you're gonna jump to the side and catch that kick. Now you have their leg and they're standing on one leg. You're gonna put your hand behind their head and kick out that one leg that they're standing on, and you're throwing them. In first and second form in Hungar, we have a move like this. Okay, it's actually like this. You have your hands back here, a big movement, big exaggerated attack like that. Now if we just adjust it to say, rather than having our hands back here, we have our hands here in front. We have a leg, all right? Now we throw the hand back and we make a move and we trip them. It's the same technique, but oftentimes with throws and takedowns, which are very common in Tai Chi and Bagua forms, you don't see that it's a takedown. You just see what's that? Well, this is an exaggerated movement of that, where someone's standing on one leg, you have their leg, bam. So, where is Kung Fu in MMA? It's everywhere. It is everywhere. We are so in common. We're so similar. But people are using their eyes that they use to look at people's forms and trying to find the Kung Fu in the fight. And the forms will train you for fights if you do them right, but you're not going to see them in the fight. It's totally different. Another big difference between MMA and Kung Fu is that MMA train to fight. Whereas in a lot of Kung Fu practices I've been to, and karate practices and Taekwondo practices, yeah, someone's holding pads up and you're striking pads. Maybe you're hitting a heavy bag or something, and then the whole rest of the time you're just practicing your forms in the air. That is good and that is necessary for beginner students wanting to learn Kung Fu or traditional martial arts. You're laying a foundation for way more advanced things to come in the future. Almost every single technique I've learned in Muay Thai or MMA, other than like Jiu-Jitsu, I have found a counterpart in traditional Chinese martial arts. But there are a lot of moves from Kung Fu that don't have a counterpart in MMA. And I think that is our advantage as Kung Fu practitioners. We have everything that they have, but we also have a little more that we just have to maybe adjust, maybe work with, and then we'll be pulling out new techniques and new strikes that the MMA people have never seen. Back in the very beginning of the UFC, everyone was a striker or potentially a wrestler. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came along and just wiped everybody, just smeared them. Because nobody knew Jiu-Jitsu. Once the Jiu-Jitsu guy had you on the ground, you're in his world, and you're basically a white belt in whatever you do. You suck. And then strikers started to learn Jiu-Jitsu. Holly Holm knocked out Ronda Rousey. And so it's not a matter of striking is better than Jiu-Jitsu. It was just Jiu-Jitsu was the new thing that everybody latched onto. And so everyone thought that was the best. And then until the strikers learned Jiu-Jitsu, it was like very hard to be a Jiu-Jitsu person. But now you can't just know Jiu-Jitsu and win an MMA fight. You have to also know the striking. So then everybody was on a level playing field. And then I've heard for so many years people say high kicks won't work, spin kicks won't work, don't do them, they're risky. And now what are we seeing in MMA? Holly Holm knocking out Ronda Rousey with a head kick. So people thought originally we need to leave these traditional martial arts behind and train MMA. We need to train what works. But now it's coming full circle. So that I believe that people are going to start looking more at the traditional arts, at the jumping kicks and the spin kicks and the head kicks, because those are the things that people said would never work. Well, those are the things that people never trained or never trained to fight with. And now we're seeing them in MMA. So Kung Fu has a lot to offer. Kung Fu has a lot of techniques that don't have a counterpart in MMA, but everything that MMA does, we also do. We just need to train that way. So that was maybe an extra rant tossed in at the end of another rant, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. If you have a question, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to explain any one of the potential tangents I could have gone on and had to restrain myself from, but there you go.